Hello everyone, my name is Yele of Yele Stitches. Yele Stitches is a female fashion brand that caters to making female dresses like this beautiful top that I'm wearing, turn around, and accessories. Alright, today I'm going to be showing you how to draft a basic bodice pattern for a simple top, like a top from your neck to your upper hip. Let's get right into it, shall we? Yeah. The first thing you will need is your pattern paper, marker, rulers, a curved ruler and a straight ruler, and your tape roll paper. So we're going to measure 3 inches at the top of your paper. Right now we're trying to make the front piece, and that means that it's going to be on fold, or we're imagining it's going to be on fold. So measure 3 inches, then you measure a 5-inch from the 3-inch mark. So that's going to be a total of 8 inches. 3 inches first, then 5 inches. Then from your 5 inches mark, you're going to go down by 1 inch. This is because we want to make a shoulder slant. This is because all shoulders are slant except some special people. I don't know those people. You're going to draw a slant line from that 3-inch to your 1-inch drop. And then the shoulder measurements that I'm using is 14.5, and I'm going to divide 14.5 into 2, and that's going to be 7.25. Now since I already have 3 inches from the edge of my paper, that means I just need to measure 4.25 on my slants. I hope you got the mathematics of that. I already have 3 inches, the first 3 inches, then I'm just going to measure 4.25 on my slant to make a total of 7.25 inches. And then from there, I'm going to measure my armhole. The formula for your armhole is shoulder divided by 2 plus 0.5. Now my shoulder is 14.5, divided by 2 is 7.25, plus 0.5 is going to be 7.75. So I draw a straight line from the top to my 7.75 line, and then I draw a line right across it, and that is going to be labeled as my chest line. That is the line that is immediately under your armpit, or the line above your bust. That is going to be your chest line. The next thing is the bust apex. That is the length from my shoulder to my nipple. Mine is 10 inches. Yours could be shorter, longer. Most times the bigger the bust, the longer the bust apex, or the lower the bust apex, if you get the drift of what I mean. And then I'm going to draw that 10 inches line across also, and that is going to be my bust line. So the first line is my chest line, the second one is my bust line. I hope you are following me. If you are following me, say in the comment section. All right, okay, so the next line I'm going to take is my waistline. That is from my shoulder to my waist. From my shoulder to my waist is about 16 inches, and then I'm going to mark the 16 inches and also draw a line across it and label it as my waistline. And then the next line is the length of the entire top. The length of the entire top is just the length of the paper. I did that on purpose, and that is just going to be my hip line, so I don't have to draw an extra line. That's why I did it. I'm a lazy person, I know. You don't have to tell me. Alright, so now after we've finished making all our horizontal measurements, we finished making our vertical measurements. Now we're going to take our horizontal measurements, that is the circumferences around our bust, hip, waist, and we're going to divide each one by 4. We are dividing it into 4 because of the symmetry of the body. The front is divided into 2 equal parts, and the back is also divided into 2 equal parts, which makes a total of 4. So my bust is 34 inches, divided by 4 is 8.5. My waist is 26 inches, divided by 4 is 6.5, and then the hip, or the upper hip where my top is going to stop, is 36 inches, divided by 4 is 9 inches. So I divided each of my measurements by 4, and I marked it out like so. And now I'm going to join all my lines with a pencil because it is a temporary line. We are still going to draw a permanent bust to hip line, and the reason why we are drawing with the temporary line is because when I draw the line finish, you see that there is a sharp contour between the bust, the waist, and the hip. this would definitely confuse your fabric. Your fabric would not lay well with this kind of contour. We need a straighter line on your fabric. We need something that is more realistic than this line that we are looking at, because your fabric will not cooperate well with you if you use that line to sew your dress together. So that is why the concept of darts are introduced. Now, to get where you are going to place your darts on your pattern, you are going to need your bust apex. Your bust apex is the distance from your nipple, your right nipple to your left nipple, or from one nipple to the other. Boys, please close your ears at this point. I'm just kidding. Don't close your ears. All right. So I'm going to measure my bust span is 7. So I'm dividing that into 2, which is 3.5. And then I measure that, and I'm going to draw a straight line from my bust to my hip using the 3.5 bust span. The next thing is to introduce my dart, which will be 0.75 to either sides of the bust span. So 0.75 to one side and 0.75 to the other side. So I meant both sides of the bust span. And now, since I'm removing 1.5 from that hip, and from that dart, I'm going to add the 1.5 to the other side of the line. Maybe when I draw it, you'll see better. So I went down by 0.5 inch from the bust and went up by 1 inch from the hip, and I'm going to connect all my lines together to make a very fine dart. My dart is looking like a triangle. Anyways, you see my beautiful dart, and then, like I said, I'm removing that 1.5 and I'm adding it to the other side. So adding the 1.5, you can see my bust to waist to hip line is looking so much more better, much more realistic. Now my fabric will cooperate with me for sure, just because I introduced the dart and I extended it a little bit. I hope you understood the concept. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment section and I will surely answer you. All right, so I just extended my line from my bust to my chest, and now I'm going to introduce the bust dart. The bust dart is to remove all the excess around my bust area, or around the bust area. And I took the same 0.75 from the top and from the bottom of my bust line, and then I joined the dart to 0.5 inches from my bust point. And now you have that 1.5 inches. The other dart is also 1.5 inches. So we have two 1.5 inches that are going to be removed from your fabric. The next thing we are going to do is the armhole. All right, so the first thing is to find the middle of your armhole. 7.75 divided by 2. I mark that point. That's going to be the middle of my armhole. And then from that middle of my armhole, I'm going to go in by 0.75 inches. There are so many 0.75 inches in this pattern. Yes, so many. I'm going to join the top to the 0.75 inch mark, and then use my curve ruler to curve it from there on to my chest line, or from where that line meets the chest line. As you can see me do, like, you can see the way I did it. Yes, that's exactly how you should do it. Okay, so the last thing is the neckline. The general or standard neckline is just 3 inches by 3 inches. So that is a standard neckline to make a turtleneck, to make a bomber jacket, to make a normal jacket. Is 3 by 3 that you will use as the neckline. Okay, so if you want it to be wider, you can keep increasing that. If you want your neckline to look different, you can keep increasing the width, or you increase the depth of it. If you want it to be longer, for example, if you want a long V-neck, I just increased that by 2 inches to the other side, and I went down by 4 inches. So you have this lower neckline. That's if you want that. But the standard one is 3 by 3. Write that in your notes, my dear. 3 by 3. Okay, you see, that was easy. That's the front pattern. Now we are moving on to the back pattern. Easy as A, B, C. I'm extending my lines now. I'm extending my chest line. Then I'm extending my bust line. I'm extending my waistline, and then my hip line is already the bottom of the paper, like I said before. And now I'm going to draw a division between both of them, And I'm also going to introduce my zip allowance. My zip allowance is just 1 inch. You can make yours more so you can account for any mistake that you could possibly make. So I put 1 inch zip allowance between the front and the back pattern. Remember, the front pattern is on fold, but the back pattern is not on fold. It is like it's divided into two. It's not together. If you get what I mean, you get what I mean. If you have any question, please ask me in the comment section and I'll be willing to oblige you an answer. So we're just going to repeat the same steps as we did for the front pattern: 3 inches, 5 inches, and then we'll continue from there. There are some basic differences between the front and back pattern, as you already probably suspect, and we'll be getting to that in a minute. So one of the difference between our front and back pattern is that we take our darts from the chest line and not from the bust line. So it's going to be a little bit longer than the front dart. So I just measured my bust span. I connected from my chest line all the way to my hip line, and then I went down by about half an inch. That is where my dart is going to start from. And then from my waist, I took 0.75 inches from both sides, just as I did for the front. And then I joined all this line, and then I went up by 1 inch of my hip line, and then I joined those points as well. So the darts look exactly alike. The only difference is it starts from the chest line and not from the bust line. And now I just added my 1.5 inch to the other side like I did for the front. Now for the back, to prevent something called zip bulge, the bulge when you put your zip and then your zip just comes out like a contour at the back. To prevent that, we are going to go in by 0.5 inches at the waistline, and then we join from the chest line to the waistline, and from the chest line to the waistline for our 1 inch zip allowance. So you see that the zipper is now a little bit curved, because everyone's back that I know is curved. If yours is not curved, then let's move on. All right, so for our armhole, we're going to find the middle like we did for the front pattern. The only difference is that we are not going to go in by 0.75 inches like we did for the front pattern, and that's because there is no bust at the back, except you have bust at the back now, but I don't have bust at the back. So since there is no bust at the back, we're just going to join all these lines together like I did before. There is no need for a bust dart, only a waist dart. No need for a bust dart. So I'm joining from the middle point. This ruler did not cooperate with me. I need a smaller ruler. So I'm joining from the middle point on the armhole, and I'm going to join it to my chest line. So you see that my back armhole is not as curvy as my front armhole. There is no excess to be removed from the bust area. It's just like a straight line at the back, no bust or anything to cause anything. So our neckline, the standard neckline, is 1 inch down. That's 3 inches by 1 inch. 3 inches by 1 inch. That's the standard neckline. But if you want like a low back, you can go down, by 7 extra inches and draw your curve to make it wider. I went in 2 inches more, and just draw your curve from that 2 inches more down, and then you have a low back if you want a low back. But the standard one is 3 inches by 1 inches. That's for a turtleneck, for a bomber jacket, simple tops, stuff like that. You need 3 by 1. But if you want it to be lower, the lower you go and the wider you go, the more exposed your back will be. So it depends on you and the inspiration that is inspiring you to make your dress. Now remember, you took 1.5 inches from the front pattern, so you're going to have to remove that 1.5 inches from your back pattern. So that means your back pattern is going to be 1.5 inches shorter than your front pattern, because of the bust dart. Because you're going to remove that 1.5 inch bust dart, you just decide to remove 1.5 inches from the back pattern. Now do not forget to add 1 inch seam allowance. Add 1 inch seam allowance to the sides of your pattern. To the sides of your pattern, add 1 inch seam allowance. Now to the dart area of your pattern, like when you cut out your dart, you are going to add 0.5 inches allowance, because when you take the darts in, you don't want too much fabric taken away from your back. Now if you want to make a princess seam, you see the way I just joined from the middle point to my bust line. If you want to do it for the front, same process for the princess seam. If you want a shoulder princess seam as well, you can just find the middle of your shoulder and join it to that same bust line point. You can just join it to that same bust line point, and then you have a shoulder seam if you want one, or a princess seam if you want the princess seam. Same goes for the back also. If you want the shoulder for the back, you want a shoulder dart for the back, you just find the middle of your shoulder and join it to that chest line point. Now if you want to see me make a dress out of this pattern, I would love for you to put it in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed my tutorial. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I love you guys. Peace.